Okay, let me take a breather here. This one is I really like it. If you're not following me on Skillshare, now I'm forgetting. I think I put this grid seamless repeat in my geometrics class. So you can get that there, but I'm going to show you how to do it without the grid. It's okay, Shamini. I see you saying sorry. It's just funny. I get so distracted with repeat patterns. And then this is just another example of using the same technique that I'm going to show you for just something much more random. All right, let's go ahead and just start a canvas size that works for your iPad. With, make sure it's square and make sure the pixels, if you go into Canvas and Canvas information, the pixels need to be an even number. And 300 dpi is great. And the reason for that, and this is my theory, so this isn't like confirmed by Procreate or anything, but it totally makes math sense, is we're dividing things up and you can't divide a pixel. We're trying to split things perfectly and all of that, and we can't split a pixel. So we want to be able to split things perfectly. If you're in Europe, I don't know where. I think the gal that I was trying to troubleshoot this with was in London, and there's a typical canvas size that ended up in an odd number of pixels. So just check that. Because it was a centimeters thing, converting. If you're in inches, I think it's automatically going to be an even number. All right. If you haven't seen the last live that I did, we did a lot. I'm going to just show you briefly. Oh, let's go ahead and pick a brush. Go to the monoline brush in the calligraphy section. And then you can go into it. And before I forget, I'm going to show you how to get things back to the default. So you can go into the properties and you can bump the size up. And any changes you make to a native brush, you can swipe left and reset it to go back to the native brush settings. But it might just be a good idea to duplicate and then change. And then you can change the name and call it yours, really. Because if it's different than the original, then it's yours. So monoline brush, I feel like it's a little dark in here. Hopefully you guys, it looks like it's okay on the screen. And then we're going to go into the wrench tool, canvas, drawing guide. And on this 2D grid, this allows us, if we turn on the drawing assist, it allows us to have the perfectly straight line so that it repeats. And again, don't use this snap straight line. It doesn't snap perfectly vertical or horizontal. And when you're doing a repeat pattern, this needs to line up with this perfectly. So if you get that all the way across, then you can erase the middle as much as you want and do whatever you want in the middle, as long as those ends are the same. So if you want more practice on that, the previous Instagram live that I did, which is in IGTV now, uses that method. And I thought I would show you a slightly different way. I thought we could practice a slightly different way this time. I don't think we even need drawing assist on. So this way is just using the selection tool and having it be on rectangle. And then if you're drawing, right, you can get the same idea with that. Oh, hi, Allie. Hopefully I'm not keeping you up. So the first thing we need to do for, I'm going to turn the grid off. We don't need the grid. The first thing we need to do for the design that I intended to show you today is just get a shape to the center. I'm just going to fill a page and select it and shrink it, turn on freeform, and just, I have snapping on. So I'm just making a rectangle, keep it simple, very much like the one I did in the example, and then snap it right to the center. It actually doesn't need to be in the center. That's why I was playing around with that purple one I just showed you. Well, although the center pieces in that one were centered, all the lines were very random around it. So we're going to do some things on different layers. So go ahead and just leave that on one layer and have another layer. If it's easier to maybe turn the opacity down on this so that you can really see what you're doing. We just need to get some lines that are essentially going to look like this. I'll show you really quick what we're doing. We're doing some lines that look like this. But to do that, we need to have this one and this one be perfect so that they line up when this repeats. So we're doing this line all the way through with the rectangle selection tool. Make it as wide or as narrow as you want. You can go ahead and do as many as you want too. And you can drag and drop, or you can just fill layer. And then you can erase those at this point, or you can wait. I'm going to turn the opacity down on that one a little bit too and go to a new layer. So using the selection tool is a nice way to not have to deal with the roundy ends on the monoline brush. So you could go ahead and turn on Drawing Assist. We had it on 2D grid, and have a teeny tiny monoline brush and just kind of deal with it like this, right? And draw your thing. You're going to have these rounded corners. And when you're zoomed out, that's not really going to make that big of a difference. This is the first time I've actually done this part with this selection tool. So let's see how it goes. So I just need that little outline around the box. I'm going to erase part of this line. If it's really bugging you, you can erase part of it now. So you can just, whoops, you can just erase part of it now, and then go back to a new layer. And then let's see here. I'm going to do this selection. I'm going to just try to avoid having to do a lot of erasing and get that selection. So this is not going to allow me to perfectly go straight across. So you can have varying widths of lines. Let me show you what that's going to look like. Remember, we have the opacity down on the vertical layer. This will allow you though, so this one's lined up quite well where this and this, although there is a little bit of a thing here, this will allow you to, whoops, I'm still on rectangle. I'm going to select that piece and tap it once. And now it's quite lined up. This one needs to be shifted that way. So we've got those corners nice and clean. So we need to do that same thing with a line going down and then a line going across. So we're just going to keep using the rectangle selection tool. You could copy and paste that layer and duplicate it and put it down here. So just kind of play around with maybe flipping it so the thin line is on the other side now. Turning on magnetics, turning off snapping, and magnetics will let you slide it perfectly if you get that blue line. Oh, you know what? So our they're not lined up because we flipped it, but we can easily just tap because the distance between those lines is still exactly the same as up here. So that's another way to just kind of get that look without having to redraw it. And there was no need to flip it either. If you want a consistent line thickness across, you could just do the rectangle all the way across. And then you'd have to erase down here in the middle. Hopefully that makes sense. And now we just need a rectangle over here. And I haven't mentioned how big or small this needs to be. And you'll be able to play around with different ideas with this method, I'm going to go to a new layer and see what you can do, because we're going to be duplicating this and pushing it to the four corners. So if it's too big, those are going to bump into each other. This corner, when it's up here, is going to bump into this corner. All right, so I'm on a new layer, and now I'm going to try to get a rectangle that goes from here to here. This one lined up really well. This one didn't, but I can put it on, I selected it and put it on freeform, and I can just drag it down. I have a snorty dog in the room with me. My dog is, oops, I need to fill it before I can select it. My dog is terminally ill. He seems to be doing well, but he has lower airway collapse. And so he has a lot of snorts. Okay, I need to select just this stripe here. Since it's not on its own layer, when I selected it, also selected the one over here. And just kind of bring that lined up more. Can't quite tell with the boundary box around it. Whoops, I think I rotated it. Okay. And let's make sure our opacities are back up on everything, and you can merge all of this. Once you're happy with it, you can merge it. Just going to scroll back and see. I think people are not asking questions. Feel free to ask questions. Okay, so once you have somewhat of shape here, as random as you want, not too big over here and over here, then you just need corner marks. You can duplicate it first because you actually don't need corner marks on this particular one, but on the duplicate you need corner marks. I'm going to go to a new color and just put opposing corner marks on, so we have ink to all four sides, and then I need 4 of those. So I have the original sitting there, and I have snapping on. I don't use magnetics unless I'm just trying to slide things perfectly like I did earlier without snapping. And then let's see if it snaps well. It snaps well. You have to get those gold lines both directions. And this is the other thing I'm looking at, is the space between our two designs. So we didn't make it so big that it's bumping into the other side, so that's good. Whoops. So we're going to push 1 into each corner. And then we can merge those, and we can get rid of the corner marks. And that's the kind of foundation of this design. I don't know if you heard my dog. I ended up going on a new layer. I've kept my layers separate. Also, before you duplicate, if you want this to not just be a solid color, these don't have to be. The only thing that has to be very precise is where things meet the edge. So if you're changing colors on this or even on the lines before you duplicate, you do that. But again, even with color, you can't have a different color down here as you do up here, so be careful of that as well. So do all your color changes before you duplicate. And then from here, I'm not going to spend time on this, but one thing you could continue to do is do another line. Let's go back to the blue. Do another line that's in here. right? Or do any design you want. You could add more lines in here. You could do some ladder look like this. You can add anything you want to fill in your design some more. Just make sure if you go off the edge, it's perfectly repeating on the other side. All right, and then to check your design, we do have ink to all four corners, so just turn the background layer off, copy all. I'm going to group those and turn them off and paste. And then we're going to just duplicate that 4 times. You could make some color changes too before you duplicate. So at this point, in fact, let's from just having one of these, if you want to drag and drop colors to these, just need to make sure that the 4 corners are the same color. So if you want an orange there, you would just need to drag it to each one. I still have my color palettes. If you're in my Facebook group, I mentioned color palettes recently. I'm going to be putting them on my website. Oops. Oh, you can do that too. You could fill in any space you want. Over here will repeat over here. So if you fill that too. All right, so let's just kind of do that right now. And then just duplicate, duplicate, duplicate. Select them all, shrink them all. Move 2 to the top, or move 1 to each corner, however you like to do that best, and merge them. You can do that again. I like to keep a 5th one just so I have this version still in existence in case I go back to it. Ooh, that's pretty. I like these colors. And then, of course, your background is separate. And, of course, white is not working. I've been having the hardest time getting my background to go back to white. Ooh, that's pretty cool. I like that. So the one I showed you originally is exactly like that, but you know, the rectangle is squattier. Here I can go back to the original. It's all very uniform. And then that's what it looked like when it repeated. And then I added a little middle line there. So it looked like that. And then I love playing around with the grid, all sorts of seamless repeat textures. The same idea can be done with any shape. So for this one, the original shape was just this kind of oval with the line up top and down below. This one I just kind of played around with little lines, making sure, I just made sure I didn't go off the edge up there or down here. And then show you the other one that I showed you earlier. For this one, the way I started, hopefully that's not too dark. Somebody's saying that they didn't understand when I said I was addicted to pattern making, but now they do because they're addicted too. Yes, welcome. So this one, I just started with that. So these are centered, but they really don't need to be. The only thing that I was worried about, you just have to experiment, is whatever you have here, when you put your corner marks on and duplicate it, it could potentially bump in. The duplicate could, overlap. So that's just something you need to play around with. And if you're familiar with the diamond that I sometimes use to try to, make sure that doesn't happen, for this type of design, not even that is a good way. I was way out of the diamond for something and it didn't overlap. So just experiment. So this is how I started with this one. And then that pushed into the four corners looked like that. So then the middle one. And of course, once I got to this stage, I changed the colors. This is when I changed all of the colors. I did it all initially in the same color. So just having these two be the same. Anything that's kind of repeating, make sure they're the same. And then I added this white line and this black line. Maybe this purple line too. I have to toggle it. My menu's in the way here. Nope, just the black line. I must have added this purple line at some point because it's not on the original. Allie says, I made a master template with a diamond shape on it to guide me. Yeah, that's a good idea. You could just do whatever your canvas size is and just put your diamond on there and just keep repeating that canvas, blank canvas, every time you start a repeat pattern.